Hey, are you addicted to your cell phone? What happens when constant cell phone use starts to hurt more than it helps? Well, Nick Padlo is the founder and CEO of Sophros Recovery to talk about why smartphone addiction is becoming a real behavioral health concern and what schools and parents can do about it. Good morning to you, Nick. Good to have you on.
Good morning. Good to be on.
Why is smartphone overuse similar to a behavioral health issue?
I think the first thing you have to do is think about like what is addiction, right? Addiction is taking shortcuts to those like brain chemicals that we like so much, the serotonin, the dopamine, the norepinephrine. And so whether it's an addiction to substances or a process addiction like food, gambling, cell phone, regardless of what it is, it's still kind of playing on the same neurochemistry and the same mechanisms in the brain that tend to affect us in those same ways.
And most New Jersey schools have now done something about it, right? Most of them are now locking up student cell phones bell to bell, they call it, so from the beginning of the school day to the end. But as recently as last year, most schools did not do that. So what led up to it, and why do you think that's so important?
Well, I think we see a rise in a couple things. So the first thing I mentioned, which is this like impact on the brain and like similar characteristics to some other addictions. The second thing that we're seeing, and it's obviously been in the news a lot, which is this, the environment in which children interact in social media, it gives this cloak of anonymity. And so you see this rise of kind of cyberbullying and even just the perception that everyone's doing better than they are. We all know we paint a rosy picture, and so for kids that can be especially damaging because they don't have all of the thought processes that we do, saying, okay, well, I'm going to discount that because I know it's not real. I know that's not their real life. They think everyone's doing better than me. Why am I so sad when everyone else is so happy? And so you see, and then of course distraction in the classroom, which is the obvious one.
Yeah, and in the videos that are so well produced and slick, and the lighting and the color is perfect, and everybody looks perfect, you know that there were 500 takes, or maybe they don't know. That's the problem. That there were 500 takes beforehand to make it just right. Even some of the basketball shots where the guy just does that and boom gets it in, that might be 4,600 takes later before they got that. But what you see on TV is not necessarily what you get. I know personally that I have gone out of the house on occasion and not had my cell phone with me, and you get into panic attack mode. And we've gotten to a point where we feel that we can't survive without our cell phones with us. At that point, is this a problem?
It is, and what you're feeling, what you're reacting to is like very natural from the brain, right? As I mentioned, you get these hits of dopamine and serotonin. So there's this whole kind of score that's being kept by your brain of like, oh, I need my little bump of what's not a substance, but now this phone use, and that phone use gives us a little bit of a bump, like whether it's like smoking a cigarette or whether it's, gambling or whatever it is, we're not getting that rush. And so our brain is like, hey, wait, what you need that, like go back and get that. And it's scary when we think about how, dependent we are, not just on our daily needs and like trying to use a Google map to get somewhere, but also in keeping our brain in the state in which it's used to being.
What signs rather should parents and teachers look for if a student is over dependent on their phone? Is there a specific time or some kind of a sign that that student gives when a parent or a teacher should say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, we got a problem here"?
I think limiting time is the easiest way to do it, right? Because that's the thing that you can add controls on and you can measure. The things that are a little harder that I would suggest looking at are things like, are we seeing challenges with mental health? Are we getting connection in the real world with other people, with, going out? Are we going outside? Are we getting some of these natural sources of dopamine and serotonin, which we get from being outdoors, which we get from hanging out with other people? Because our brain, once it starts to rely on these synthetic sources like a cell phone, it kind of withdraws from that. And so a lot of times what you'll see is you'll see isolation, you'll see increases in depression, you'll see decreases in attention span, things like that.
And you talk about digital detox and emotional resilience. What do those look like in practice?
They mean time without your phone, right? What are the times that we set apart that we say, hey, I'm going to go back to some of these more natural sources. I'm going to go back to establishing some human connection, whether that's, hey, we don't use our phone at the dinner table as a start, right? Or whether it's, we're going to spend a Saturday and we're not going to be on our phones. And I think it's just so important that we model that as parents as well. Because, we can say, hey, you shouldn't be on your phone so much. And meanwhile, we're on our phone doing our thing. And it's like that seems very incongruent to the child. And so I think that, having these family times where we say, hey, this is a no cell phone time, regardless of what happens. Like I'm taking an hour, right? Nothing's going to happen in this hour on my phone that I can't address in an hour. And so we start to allow that space for our brain to reset and for us to establish real in-person connection.
And for parents who want to start setting better boundaries without starting a battle, should they just reach some kind of a compromise? Like, if you do this, then we'll give you more phone time. How does that work?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, you could get into the nuance of why that could be slightly problematic, but I think at the end of the day, it's just like if you give child candy, you're like, hey, you do this and you get a candy or you get a snow cone. Like it's okay to have those small rewards. Um, but I think that just starting by setting some time apart, even if you have to incentivize it, and it can be small time, right? You don't have to start with we're now not using our phones after 5 p.m. It doesn't have to be like that, but it could be, hey, we're not going to use them at dinner. We're not going to use them. We're going to leave our phones behind when we're going to the theme park or whatever it is that you might do as a family.
Nick, what about the age? If you're a parent, what age is an okay age for a child to get that first cell phone? And should it be a full smartphone or just a flip phone?
So I think the flip phones is going to be a hard sell. When everybody else has got the smartphone. So I think that's going to be a hard sell. I don't know that there's a specific age where you're like, at this age, they're now capable. But as children are growing up, all the way to 15, their brains are still forming. And so we want to be as careful as we can. And so I think that two things. One is maybe wait a little longer than you think you should. Wait until you've heard that drumbeat of everybody else has one for a little longer, hold out a little longer. And then the second thing is set limits early. It's a whole lot easier to set the requirements up front as opposed to have to change them later. That you're going to get a lot more pushback if you're reducing access as opposed to if you start slow, allow them to use it at certain times, and then slowly increase that over time as they start to become more responsible users of it.
Nick, what's a website rather for more information?
We've got some information on process recovery is what you're going to want to look for under sophrosrecovery.com, SOPHROS recovery.com.
Very good. Nick Padlo, founder and CEO of Sophros Recovery. Try to detach yourself from your phones. Thank you for joining us this morning. Very important topic. We appreciate you.
Thank you.